Oh, yes, we are refreshed here on this episode of 5 Rounds on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Figured if the UFC is going to take all these weeks off, we might as well take at least 1 week off during the holiday season. So we were off last Thursday. Now, even the UFC's taking another weekend off. They're so lazy, but they're going to be back soon. In fact, this month, next month, the month of March are going to be incredible. So we are going to talk about it. We're going to have an awesome guest on this episode, our very good friend who's a big-time commentator now and content creator with the UFC, and he's a 9-time UFC veteran himself. Dean Thomas is going to join us at around 6:30 here tonight. I want to remind you people that the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill, every episode here of 5 Rounds is served by the Quarterdeck. Guys, this is my spot. It is your spot to watch every UFC pay-per-view fight for zero cover charge. Keep that in mind. We're going to talk about this. The UFC is raising the prices for consumers of their pay-per-views. It's still going to be zero cover charge at the Quarterdeck. So this is where you want to watch every UFC pay-per-view fight. They got the flat screen, high definition TVs covering every wall. Most of the locations have patios, which is a great way to watch the fights. Locations all over Broward County. They got 2-for-1 happy hour all day, every day. The food is delicious. Every time I'm out at the Quarterdeck for a UFC pay-per-view, I always make new friends out there. I'm high-fiving people. We're rooting for the Diaz brothers. Even when they're not fighting, I go out there and root for the Diaz brothers. So check out the Quarterdeck. If you want to find the location nearest to you or peep that menu before you go, check them out online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. I hope everyone's having a happy new year. And something we're going to do on this episode, we will give out some 2021 awards in the UFC. Fighter of the Year, Fight of the Year, Knockout of the Year, maybe even Submission of the Year. So we're going to have a good time on this episode. I'm Alex Donno. Let me introduce my co-hosts. I feel like it's been a little while since we've seen James Walker. So let me go down low to James, who's done a lot of traveling during the holiday season. How are you, sir?
Doing well. I have been out of South Florida for a couple weeks now, so looking forward to getting back in a few days. And yeah, doing well. Thanks for asking.
And actually, I like I can't really see what's going on in the room that you're in, but it almost looks like a martial arts studio or something, because that, like, the little wall over your right shoulder kind of looks like, the little dividers in a dojo. So I feel like this is very much keeping in the theme of the program, James.
Hey, you're very observant, because my brother-in-law, whose house I'm in right now, actually trains in jiu-jitsu. So
no way.
Yeah. I believe he's a brown belt. He might be close to it. He's a brown belt. Yeah.
Dude.
At least I think. I hope I didn't get that wrong.
Hey, listen. If he does have a black belt, he's very disrespected by you saying he has a brown belt.
Exactly. That's why I hope I didn't get it wrong. But at least a brown.
So we got James Walker live in the dojo. We got Frank Zaffere live in the home office. Frank, how you been?
I'm good, dog. I'm over my flu Rona. Sorry that it took me out last week. It was awful. But
so you had like a combo, like flu and corona. It's pretty bad, man. I hope you're feeling okay.
Yeah, I had the combo. Well, neither one of them is bad in and of itself, but to have the two of them is irritating as hell.
I bet.
And then I happen to be a supreme wimp when it comes to feeling under the weather. So if I'm even mildly under the weather, I'm hugely under the weather. So I need to lay on the couch, and I just watch Narcos Mexico, then Narcos Colombia. And then, I thought I was starting to come out of it, and then my Irish coughed up a 28-7 halftime lead, and that put me out for another 2 days. So
yeah, I hear that. See, like for me, when I get sick, I've got a pretty high tolerance for stuff, but I milk it so I can try to get like sympathy and try to get waited on by family. Like that's what I do. Like I might be good enough to live my life, but I will milk every second of it so that I could try to get breakfast in bed or something out of it. Like that's kind of my style, man. So guys, we're looking forward to a big time UFC slate coming up here in the year 2022. And the first big fight that we look forward to, and I know we do have a non-pay-per-view fight coming up, not this week, but the week after. But looking forward to January 22nd. This is a fight we've been waiting for a long time, guys. Francis Ngannou the undisputed, well, I guess he is disputed now, but he is the main heavyweight champion against the interim heavyweight champ. Two Frenchmen stepping into the octagon against one another. Two former training partners in Paris. Ngannou left that gym, though, a couple of years ago. Francis Ngannou against Cyril Gane. Now, James, something that this has been talked about now for months, and I've watched it now a few times since the footage, at least 56 seconds of the footage, has gone public. It was ESPN UK who originally tweeted it out. Yeah, you already know what I'm getting at. 56 seconds of sparring a couple of years ago in France between Francis Ngannou and Cyril Gane. Now, Francis Ngannou feels that his former coach, who's got an axe to grind, may have manipulated that footage, edited the footage, and released it where Ngannou thinks that he thinks the footage is misleading because it makes it look like Cyril Gane gets the better of him in sparring for this segment. He feels that his former coach with an axe to grind has manipulated the footage to make him look bad. I got to tell you, James, I don't know. It sounds like you've watched it, and it doesn't take very long to watch it. It's 56 seconds long. I've watched it a few times. This footage to me was so hyped, overhyped, that by the time I saw it, I don't really see what the big deal is. Like, people made it sound like if you watch this video, you will be convinced that Ngannou is going to get his ass beat on January 22nd. And listen, first thing that jumps into mind by it, and listen, I've seen sparring before, and I've seen sparring kind of at various speeds and intensities. These guys were both going about 50%. All right. And neither of them was really trying to hit the other with power. Now, in the clip, Cyril Gane looked a little bit faster and a little bit sharper than Francis Ngannou. I'd love to know what the context was of when this portion of the training happened, because at that point, I don't know why. I don't know what he was doing before this footage, but Ngannou looked a lot more tired at that specific moment in training than Gane did. Ngannou also landed a couple of uppercuts, so it wasn't completely one-sided. And, you notice when you're doing a sparring session where both guys were going at about 50% intensity, right there, that takes away Ngannou's biggest weapon, which is power, right? Because very few people would argue that when it comes to just technical kickboxing, yeah, Cyril Gane is probably better than Francis Ngannou when it comes to pinpoint technical kickboxing. If you're taking away power and two guys are sparring with big gloves, headgear, 50% speed, you're taking away Francis Ngannou's biggest weapon. So honestly, James, I watched that footage and I came away thinking, what's the big deal? This doesn't really tell me anything about their upcoming fight.
I saw it 2 or 3 times, and I can guarantee you that Cyril Gane is not going to stand in the box like he did for that 50 or so seconds that he did, against Francis Ngannou, where both of them were in the box and they were trading blows for about, as you said, 50%. But I'm fine with both sides of the argument in this. I think for Cyril Gane's camp, this 56-second video accomplished the goal of saying, okay, Cyril Gane has a legitimate shot against Francis Ngannou. Put the video out there, show that, Cyril Gane overall got the best of Ngannou for about 56 seconds. Now, in a 5-round fight, if Gane got the best of Ngannou for 56 seconds, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But for the purpose of selling pay-per-views and at least showing the legitimacy of this, I think it accomplished that on that side. On Ngannou's side, I also side with them in saying, look, this is just, not a doctored video because it's real, but it's a portion of a video that shows, doesn't show any context. Maybe Ngannou had been in a fight camp and had been training against 4 other guys before he got the Gane. And, sometimes they like to throw different guys at different times to kind of tire guys out, at what point that was. So I'm fine with both sides of the argument. And I'm fine with the video. I think the video kind of hypes up the fight. Without the video, I don't think we're talking about this as much. But one more point I want to make with Ngannou. I think this is very dangerous to sort of poke the bear with Ngannou. It's been a while. We saw over the last year and a half, Ngannou's been knocking guys out. A lot of people think he's the scariest guy in the UFC. We haven't really talked about him that much over the last 9 months or so, except for this and except for the arguments between, I'm sure we're going to get to this, between Ngannou's camp and the UFC. So a lot of people are kind of forgetting how dangerous Francis Ngannou is, especially in his last fight against Stipe. I'm already predicting an Ngannou win. I'd be curious to see what you guys think with that. But I think a quiet Ngannou, with people not really talking about him as much and how dangerous he is, and Ngannou not really talking as much, he's kind of staying quiet. He kind of walked past both of them, in their entire camp a few weeks ago. I think this is going to be a setup for Ngannou to have a pretty impressive victory. That's just my thoughts.
Guys, the sparring videos are just what they are. They're sparring videos. Sparring is not fighting. Sparring is usually done to help one opponent prepare for a fight, meaning the other opponent is coming in doing things that they're instructed to do, not to win a fight, but to present certain challenges or to present certain ways in which the other opponent can practice their craft. So any credence put on a sparring video as some evidence that there is either a parity in talent or a disparity in talent is ludicrous. I on its face. So I mean, but this is what the UFC does. I don't blame Cyril Gane for this, and I certainly don't blame Ngannou for this. This is something the UFC does because, hey, look, this is a way to sell a fight. And as James pointed out, Ngannou's a scary dude, and everybody thinks everything he hits goes to sleep. So putting out a video that might suggest that Ngannou could be struck by Cyril Gane effectively lends itself to you maybe paying the extra money you're going to have to pay now to get a pay-per-view. But, I mean, anybody knows anything about fighting knows that the last thing you want to do is look at sparring footage as some evidence of who's better. Because, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
You're right, because like you're saying, sparring is usually situational, and it's usually not full intensity. One of the craziest sparring experiences I've ever seen in person. Frank, I'm not sure if this was years ago at ATT. I'm not sure if you were with me that day or if I was on some sort of a solo mission, but I was at American Top Team. This had to have been about a decade ago, 9-10 years ago. And, obviously there's a lot of pro fighters who train at ATT, and it was one of the big, I don't know if they still do the same days, but it used to be Tuesdays and Thursdays were like the big training days where all the pro fighters would come in, because a lot of the pro fighters, they primarily did their training at other gyms in their neighborhood, other American Top Team affiliates, but they would all come to Coconut Creek on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'm there on a Tuesday or a Thursday. And, there's about 30 pro fighters there, like UFC, Bellator type level fighters. And, they all pair off and they start doing these sparring sessions, these striking sessions. And 90% of the pairs of fighters, they're going 50, 60%. They're training situational stuff. But they had the two craziest guys there paired off with each other. And I'm damn sure the reason why they had to pair these two guys off, because they were the two looniest guys in there, Hector Lombard and Thiago Silva. You remember Thiago Silva? Certified, I mean, toughest guy in the alley, but certified crazy person in real life. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. But, he's a guy you'd like to have on your side at a bar fight, not against you. And so I just end up watching Thiago Silva and Hector Lombard because everybody else is going like 60%. These two guys, wearing the big gloves, like 16, 20-ounce gloves, headgear, but they're trying to kill each other. Like they were trying to kill each other in this sparring session. And I know Hector Lombard has that reputation where, he's not someone that a lot of people like to spar with because he's not the type of guy you can tell like, hey, go 50, 60. Like he doesn't know how to turn it down a few notches, right? So they probably had like the one other craziest guy in there, Thiago Silva. You guys have to spar because when everyone else in there is kind of going a little bit light and working on their speed and their timing, these two guys were just trying to kill each other. And I came away from that experience like, wow. So this is what sparring can be like.
Well, didn't Kamaru Usman have his nose broken against? Well, that's what he claims against Justin Gaethje. And those are two guys that I also could see, going at least 90 miles per hour, if not 100 miles per hour.
I can see that.
And you know what? Stuff like that does happen in sparring. You guys are right. But those are bad sparring sessions. That's not supposed to be how sparring sessions go. So more often than not, they don't go that way. Alex's example of Hector Lombard. Hector Lombard's a nut job. I mean, give me a break, man. I mean, nobody wanted to spar him, by the way, like ever.
Yeah, he had that reputation.
Yeah. So, I mean, so let's throw that one out. And then, look, Gaethje and Usman with the broken nose, I mean, I think that just has to do with, an accident in sparring. But, I stand by my statement. Like, if I'm preparing for a fight and I know that James is really good striking from the outside, then you're going to see a sparring session where James is trying to work me from the outside. And you're going to say, oh, Frank's very vulnerable from the outside. No, it's just that's what he's good at. And we brought him in to help me with that, So you're not going to glean anything from it. I'm not trying to rush inside on him. I'm trying to deal with his range striking. That's what sparring is about. And then after we deal with him, we're going to bring in a wrestler. And then you're going to say, oh, my God, Frank's got all this trouble with wrestlers rushing in on him. No, I mean, that's what we're working on now. I'd like to hold the guy at range, but instead we're working on wrestling. That's what sparring is about. And I'm sure this Ngannou, I don't know. Does anyone know? Was Gane and Ngannou, was that sparring session ahead of an Ngannou fight or a Gane fight?
It was ahead of an Ngannou fight. Francis told the story, and it was ahead of his it was ahead of his fight with Cain Velasquez, is what he said.
So that's great. So there you go. You've got a guy like that who's super athletic. That would have been a great sparring session because who's as athletic as Cain Velasquez? Cyril Gane. Outstanding sparring partner to have.
Yeah.
And I'm sure.
And chances are, because like you were saying, since, Cain Velasquez athletic, but primarily a wrestler, he had probably just gone like 20 minutes with a wrestler, and then they brought in Cyril Gane for the striking.
Right. I was just going to say, to James's point, it's probably his fifth opponent, in the last 45 minutes. So anyway, look, Cyril Gane may kick his ass, but it won't be because of what we saw in that sparring video.
Right. So go ahead, James.
Last point I wanted to make on Gane's coach. I mean, doesn't this kind of break the rules of MMA training? I mean, there's a reason why you don't see hundreds of sparring tapes out there. I mean, just think of all the tapes ATT has. You hear Kobe talking trash about Masvidal, Kobe talking trash about Dustin and all these training sessions, but you never see any tapes, of this released. I'm sure there's dozens of tapes out there of these different training sessions, but they don't really get out. So, I think it kind of looks bad on Gane's coaching team to let this out there. And I wonder if that kind of hurts trust of other fighters who will come in and spar with Cyril Gane if these kind of tapes will get out.
That's a great point. It is a huge violation of fighter code. And I don't understand how they get out. I know the UFC wants them out, James, but you're 100% right. I would be supremely pissed off, especially Francis Ngannou, who's maybe one of the most electrifying superstar talents the UFC has had in a long time. Somebody they can put the whole organization around his neck and make a lot of goddamn money. Wow. And the guy can't win. They make an interim belt. Now they're going to put out bullshit video that maybe he's having trouble with God, maybe he isn't. I mean, I understand why they keep mistreating this guy. It's as if they're afraid to pay him. It's like they want to beat him down and make sure he knows who the real boss is.
Well, he's got one fight. He's got one fight left on his deal, and he wants $10 million per bout. So they're trying to drive. I think that the UFC is trying to drive his value down.
Guys, I got to tell you, and I'm a UFC fan. I almost would like to see Francis take a walk. Good luck with Derek Lewis and Cyril Gane.
Yeah.
Francis Ngannou is the marketing machine. So good luck with those two. You want to have those two be your flagship? Knock yourself out. You better hope John Jones wins, because Ngannou will be over someplace else, and I'll be paying to watch it, and so will a lot of other people.
Well, I think this is a good segue to get into the toss-up, because the first topic I want to get into, and also we're about 12 minutes away from chatting with Dean Thomas, but the first topic I wanted to get into is related to the Francis Ngannou contract situation. So, Frank, if you have the list in front of you, let's dive headfirst into this sumbitch.
Oh, am I? I'm doing the. Oh, sorry. Hold on a second.
He's got to open his email.
I'm doing the toss-ups. Yeah. I'm ready. So I'm still suffering from the flu Rona, bro.
I got you. I hear you.
I'm still suffering from the flu
hear
Rona.
you.
Okay. Will Francis Ngannou soon move on from the UFC, as I suggested maybe he will, or do you think he'll end up signing an extension?
God, so the situation with him is, there is a champion's clause. Like, they can't keep him locked up forever. But if he beats Cyril Gane, it would extend his deal by a fight, but there is like a length of time on it. So he could sit it out if he wanted to, or he could fight again and defend his belt again. So he seems pretty firm on this demand to ask for 10 million per fight, which doesn't sound crazy. And that's, before all the bonuses and endorsements and stuff. So he would make more than just 10 million a fight, but that's the 10 million guaranteed salary. But the UFC doesn't want to set a precedent where they're giving him that money, because then everyone else is going to want extensions.
You mean like Conor McGregor?
Yeah. Well, right. That's true. They have already set the, you're right about that. They have already set that precedent with Conor. I guess they just don't want to do it again for somebody else.
And the Diaz's, by the way, every time they want to fight, they get a couple $1 million.
It's worth every penny with the Diaz brothers. If only he had that kind of drawing power. But no, honestly, like I hate to say it, because like you were hinting at, Frank, I think it would be terrible for the UFC. But Francis Ngannou, to me, like he seems like he's going to stick to his guns on this one. I don't think he's going to compromise, and I don't think the UFC is going to meet his number. And he's going to have options elsewhere. And this is going. I just want everyone to know, I would fucking hate it if this happens, where Francis Ngannou leaves the UFC and he goes off to try and have some boxing career. Because, dude, like, listen, you're not a high level boxer. Francis Ngannou is so dangerous from MMA distance when you add kicks and knees into the equation, and his defensive wrestling has gotten a lot better, and he's got incredible power, which looks unbelievable when you're wearing, the tiny 4-ounce UFC gloves. Maybe the power doesn't translate as much to boxing, and to me, he doesn't have, like, he's a good boxer for MMA. He's got this Tyson effect. When he hits you, you're going to go down and take a dirt nap. But he, to me, does not have the volume, the speed, the head movement to be an elite professional boxer. Like Tyson Fury wants to fight him, but that's a weird one, because Tyson Fury, it's like he's challenging him to a boxing rules fight with MMA gloves. It's like, you guys know, I hate the gimmicks. Like I despise Jake Paul. I despise every member of the Paul family. I despise this Triller thing, the Triller where they get you to pay like $60 a pop to watch like former NFL fighters fight former NBA player, or former NFL players fight former NBA players. I want all of it to stop. And I want the generation of like the 18, 20-year-olds. They're going to ruin this earth. Like America's going to be ruined with the generation of people that are younger than me. I don't want any of it. I want Francis Ngannou to stay in the UFC for another 10 years. I would hate it, but James, what do you think? I think we have 1 or 2 fights left of Ngannou in the octagon. Then I think he moves on, and I hate it.
Wow, I disagree. I see this pretty clearly with Ngannou staying, and I believe he stays, one, because he wins the next fight. So as long as he wins, I think that gives him a ton of leverage. Now, he wants 10 million. Doesn't mean he's going to get 10 million. He may get 8.5. He may get 8. He may get 9. Pretty much the UFC that they were going to give the money to John Jones, they can give to Francis Ngannou. And guess who his next opponent would probably be? John Jones. So is Francis Ngannou worth 8.5 million against John Jones? Yes, I think he is. I think that makes big money. John Jones isn't going to get that $10 million that he wanted prior because of all his out of the octagon issues that he's had. So that money goes to Francis Ngannou. They have that mega fight. They make more than the money that both of them command. So to me, I see it pretty clear as long as he wins. Now, if he loses, which is possible, I think that makes it a lot more murky. He probably doesn't get even close to that $10 million number. He doesn't have the heavyweight title anymore. The UFC could let him walk if they want. That's why so much is riding on this fight. And I think that's kind of an underlying storyline that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about as much, of how much winning and losing kind of affects Ngannou's future with the UFC. But he's betting on himself. I think he's going to win. So as long as those two things, kind of go together and they win, I think he stays. They figure it out.
I disagree with you, man. I mean, he's got 1 fight left on his deal. He may win. I agree with you, James. I think he will win. And then I think he heads into contract negotiations. And as shocking as it is for a boxing guy like Dana White, I don't think he appreciates the value of a superstar heavyweight. And I think he's going to play hardball with Ngannou. And I think Ngannou is going to get paid. Boxing, Bellator, God knows what other organization.
See, I wouldn't even mind Ngannou in Bellator. I'm just afraid he like goes off and tries to box for a couple of years, which would just be wasting years of his career.
you say that. You say that he'd be wasting his career, except that I don't know how old a man he is, 30, 29. I don't know. Wherever he's at, he's got 5, 6 good years left. If he could go box, you say waste his career, he could make 20, 30, 50, $75 million. Is that a waste? No. That's him cashing in on his athletic acumen right now. If
he's,
the
he's
UFC,
35, actually.
well, then even more so.
Yeah.
So if the UFC isn't willing to pay this man, get paid, Francis Ngannou, get paid. And you know what? If you get knocked out because you're not a boxer, or you lose because you're not a boxer, at least you got paid. I mean, look, these guys need to make as much money as they can. And Ngannou has committed himself to the UFC. It's time the UFC committed themselves to the realization that they don't have the kind of superstars, the kind of transcendent 1 million plus pay-per-view buy stars that they had just a couple of years ago. Conor McGregor's not even effing ranked. Francis Ngannou is the future. He's the guy. He's the meal ticket. If James is right and he beats Cyril Gane, his next fight with John Jones could be a 1.5, 1.7 million pay-per-view, fight turnout. Pay him. Jesus Christ. I can't believe we're even having this debate, but it will be a debate. And I think Francis will walk. And I hope he sticks to his guns because you know what? Nothing's bigger than the UFC. I get it. But Francis can make more money elsewhere. So go make more money elsewhere. I want to see this man succeed. He's an incredibly impressive, heartwarming, inspiring story. The man literally walked from wherever he came from in Africa to France. I mean, he
Cameroon.
Walked there. Yeah, he walked there.
I don't like to walk to the Walgreens. It's a mile away from my house.
Yeah, and so if this guy's going to get paid, this guy is not going to begrudge how he gets paid. I want to see that man get paid, and I don't care who pays him. Go where the money is, Francis. You deserve it.
And he's humble, and he stays out of trouble. I mean, he's everything the UFC could want as far as a representation as a champion.
Right, James. They could have him doing all the marketing, right? He can do all the marketing. They're not going to have the John Jones thing. That's a great point. He could be the Nike guy. He could be the Under Armour guy. He could be all those things for them.
Put him in those Modelo beer commercials that they tried to put Stipe Miocic in. Like,
God, they just started a new Stipe commercial. Did you see that one where he's like mad, like putting stuff away in the fire truck?
Oh, I did see that. Dude, I'm not going to buy anything he endorses. I'm sorry. It's like, and Stipe seems like a nice enough guy, but it's like, I feel like if I buy any product that Stipe endorses, it's just going to make me more boring. I mean, the guy is as dull as a freaking brick. Like, there's no personality whatsoever in Stipe.
Oh, God. That's what we're left with. Francis walks. We got Stipe, Cyril Gane, who, while a great talent, has the personality of wallpaper.
Yeah.
And then we have Derek Lewis, who just talks about farting post-fight. That's what we're left with.
I like Derek Lewis, though. It would be a lot of fun if he was the champion. It would be fun.
He's likable. But by the way, I don't know if you guys got this news flash. They're running an athletic organization. Derek Lewis doesn't quite fit that mold, does he? I mean, come on, man. This is not barroom brawl. This is not Tank Abbott. Like, I'd like to see some athletes play in the sport. Jesus Christ. I'm fired up, man. This Ngannou thing has me upset because I can feel it coming. I can feel the UFC getting ready to play hardball with him.
Yep.
Yeah. Wait till that show. Go ahead, Frank, with the next one.
What else? We got?
Who will be the UFC champions at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and lightweight by the end of 2022?
Actually, these will be some predictions for the year to come. Heavyweight, I'm going to shock you guys, but I think no. Oh, you know what? Oh, but do you think he gets the fight by the end of 2022? That's the only question. Do you think he gets the title fight this year? You know, if so, I was going to say Cyril Gane. Because I don't know, man. There's something in me. I think Cyril Gane, and also all this weird mojo with Francis' contract situation. I feel like he's setting himself up to lose this fight with Cyril. So I think Cyril's going to beat Ngannou. But yeah, you know, if John Jones gets a heavyweight title shot by the end of 2022, I'm going to go with John Jones. I'll go with John Jones at heavyweight, assuming he gets the fight at some point within the next 12 months. Light heavyweight, I'm going with Yuri Prochazka. I think he's going to be holding that belt going to get some crazy knock. Because honestly, do you really see Glover Teixeira getting through the calendar year? It's a great story that he won the belt at 42 years old, but I don't see Glover Teixeira getting through the year as the light heavyweight champion. And at lightweight, Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is going to punch his ticket, and he's going to win that belt within the next year. Those are my predictions. Prochazka at light heavyweight, John Jones heavyweight, and Islam Makhachev at lightweight. What do you think, James?
All right, so I'm going through the rankings right now. At heavyweight, I'm sticking with Francis Ngannou. He's going in the year with it. I think he beats John Jones, and I think he beats Cyril Gane. As long as the contract issue doesn't get in the way, I think he's going to be there. I'll skip the lightweight. To me, that's a little easier. I think Justin Gaethje finds a way to get it, to get the belt. I don't know. He'd probably get the next title shot. I think he beats Oliveira. Pretty much any matchup that he's going to have after that will be tough, whether it's Poirier, Islam, maybe Conor, but I don't think so. But I think Justin Gaethje has the belt by the end of the year. With that light heavyweight, man, I mean, it's a division I don't even pay as much attention to. I don't think Jan Blachowicz gets it back. Glover, I feel like he's a 1 or 2 fight guy. Probably lose the belt in his next title defense. So I guess you got to go with Yuri Prochazka with that. I mean, I'm looking at any of the young up and coming guys. Dominic Reyes, maybe. I mean, he's made a run before, but Johnny Walker. I mean, they're kind of up and down. So yeah, I'm sticking with Yuri Prochazka with that, or Glover if he gets past Yuri. But I'm not. That's probably the least interesting division to me in the UFC right now. Probably because John Jones left it, but even still.
I got. Unfortunately, I don't have Francis Ngannou because I think he's going to leave. So I've got Cyril Gane as our heavyweight champion, end of 2022. I've got John Jones as our light heavyweight champion, end of 2022. The reason for that is I think his introductory fight into the heavyweight division is Stipe Miocic, and I think he loses to Modelo Man. I think Stipe beats him, and I think John goes running and looking for his belt back, and there's nobody in the light heavyweight division that can touch him. And then at lightweight, Islam Makhachev, he's not ready by the end of 2022. Not that he's not ready talent-wise, it just won't happen. The time it takes to make these fights, etc. So I'm with James on this. I think it's Justin Gaethje. I think he's our reigning, defending lightweight champion end of 2022 with maybe a 2023 fight on deck with Islam. But I think it's Justin Gaethje. I think it's Justin Gaethje's time. And of the 3 people that I've described holding the belt, I could not be more impressed with the evolution of Justin Gaethje and the fighter he's become. He's a scary guy right now.
Yeah, he is.
A lot of talent.
And we got an interesting suggestion from Alex M in the chat that he thinks Israel Adesanya is going to go back up to light heavyweight and grab the belt there. I guess there could be depends on the stylistic matchup, right? Because obviously Jan Blachowicz, just with his size and strength and style, is just a bad matchup for Izzy. If he were to somehow get a crack against old man Teixeira, that's a winnable fight for sure for Adesanya. So it's something to watch out for. But no, I think this is going to be Prochazka's year. And then, Frank, you had this cockamamie idea that John Jones is going to end up going back down to light, which listen, that'd be interesting if he does it.
His body type, by the way, does not lend itself to heavyweight.
It doesn't.
And I've seen the videos of him bulking up. I mean, he just doesn't carry the kind of weight these guys carry.
Well, maybe he stopped skipping leg day because he's had these like skinny legs, which I think is one of the reasons why he's too. Well, if he gets like muscles on his legs, then maybe now he's a heavyweight.
Well, it's genetic, and by the way, he didn't have that kind of like KO Ngannou power at light heavyweight.
No.
Yeah.
So at heavyweight, I think people can eat his stuff.
That's a good point.
And Stipe can box, Stipe can wrestle. Watch out. If Stipe is his intro into the heavyweight division, that's a really tough fight for John Jones. Super tough fight for John Jones.
It is.
Jones is going to have to win a lot of 5-round decisions at heavyweight, so it's going to be a brutal run for him.
Yes,
it's his path to victory. So yeah, that's tough. It's a tough situation for him. That's why you give him kudos for challenging himself and pushing himself to do it, because really he could have cleaned out the lightweight division, especially with the way the lightweight division is right now. He could have cleaned it out a third time. You know, he cleaned it out twice already, which is
Light
why
heavyweight,
it is the way it is. Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like in Jones's credit as a heavyweight, I was watching a Chael Sonnen video this week, and I thought he raised a good point. And it's interesting to hear Chael actually say nice things about John, given all the nasty shit that John said about him. But he was basically saying, like, he thinks John is gonna like kind of renew his career at heavyweight, because he probably got a little bit unmotivated with the light heavyweight division after a certain point, and this is gonna like recharge his interest. All right, we have the pleasure of bringing in good friend of this program. This guy, he's so big time now. I mean, he is a stud UFC commentator and content creator. He's practically Dana White's best friend. Dean Thomas, can you put in a good word for us with Dana White? Because I haven't been able to track down Dana in like 9 years. He's so big time now. At least put in a good word for us so we can get Uncle Dana on.
Listen, you just lucky that I still make time for you guys.
Very
you know, be grateful. Nah, you know, y'all know y'all my boys, man. Come on, man. Like I never really want to turn down an opportunity to kick it with y'all. Y'all know this already.
We know. We love you. And we love you. And by the way, we got to 2022. We've got to make this happen where, you know, Frank Zaffere over there, he's actually recovering from the Rona, but he's getting better. We've got to set up a training day for Frank, because I want to see him get his ass kicked and thrown around a gym with you, Dean.
I've been trying to get Frank to come in and get beat up, but he's
ducking you.
We've been trying for like 4 years. Frank is scared.
Tell me the day and time, and I'm there.
All right, you keep saying that, but I'm just saying I don't want to hear no nonsense out of you, Frank.
You won't. I got the flu Rona too, so I'm tough as hell now. I had both, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, you got the Rona?
No, I got the flu Rona.
What is the flu Rona?
That's when you get the flu and the corona at the same time.
Oh man, that must hit different.
Hey, Dean, I'll get started. I want to get your perspective as a coach and a fighter on this. We don't see many sparring tapes released before fights. I'm sure there's dozens or scores or hundreds of sparring tapes out there from different camps. And, you know, it seems like they've been playing this Cyril Gane and Ngannou sparring tape for months. How much is that a violation, you know, as a coach or as a fighter? Is Ngannou rightfully upset? Or, you know, just what's your whole take on sparring tapes? Because I'm sure there's a lot of matchups out there where we could have seen sparring tapes before, but it doesn't seem like something that happens very often.
Yeah, that's pretty much a no-no to do that to your partners. You know what I mean? There's a reason why in some gyms, like even in American Top Team, it will be like no filming. And even me as a coach, I mean, I had to get clearance to film some sparring stuff. And you always want to make sure that both parties know that they're being filmed and what it's used for. And it should never be released. Sparring should never be released unless it's like, all right, we're both guys know about it and they're cool with it, but it should never be released. With that being said, what we got out of that Francis and Cyril Gane sparring footage, neither guy should be upset. Because there was nothing telling in that. I mean, Francis is like, it made me look bad. I don't think it made him look bad. Cyril wasn't really taking advantage of him. In fact, it just made it look like they were competitive and what sparring kind of looks like.
Yeah.
But if it was a video where like Francis was getting beat up, yeah, I would be very upset. And that would be a no-no. But you're not supposed to release sparring one way or the other, or even, I mean, it's kind of taboo to even talk about it.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Dean, because early on the episode, because I had heard about this sparring session, and then I'd heard about this video, like, I don't know, days or even weeks before I actually watched it, right? And by the time I watched it had been so hyped, like, I thought I was going to watch this video and be like, wow, Francis doesn't have a chance in this fight. And like you said, it was just not really, I mean, they're going at like 50%. And Ngannou did get some uppercuts in. Like, it's not like he didn't get anything in. I mean, did Cyril Gane look, you know, a little bit sharper and a little bit faster? Yeah, I guess. And Ngannou looked a little bit more tired at that point. But then the other big thing is, Dean, when you're talking about sparring at like 50%, right there, and they're in headgear with big gloves on, that's taking away Ngannou's biggest weapon, which is his power. Because at the end of the day, if Ngannou's going to win this fight, it's not really going to matter what kind of volume Gane lands with. It's going to be Ngannou's power that ends this fight, and that was not a part of this sparring session.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sparring session. I mean, like I said, like I wouldn't be upset with it. I don't even see why Francis is. I think Francis is just upset. Something about me really feels like Francis gets upset easily about little things. And I think he's got a personality where he thinks people are against him. It might be his history from growing up in such, harsh conditions. But I feel like he's always thinking people are against him, and he's kind of contrarian, and he's always battling with people. I have that impression about him. So every little thing, I think he's like questioning it and looking like, why are they doing this to me? Why are they doing that to me? But Francis, that's not a good personality trait. You got to, like if you question people all the time in your life, you need some new friends and you need a hug, but that's not a good personality trait.
Hey, Dean, can I ask you a question about Frank? Because you were just talking about Frank's personality, and he's getting ready to be in a pretty big contract dispute. You are in an exceptionally unique position. You were a fighter, you trained fighters, and you happen to be best buddies with the guy running the whole show. What's the deal with Francis Ngannou? He wants a lot of money. I personally think he's the future in terms of driving pay-per-view sales, because I'm an old boxing guy, and if you have a scary physical specimen who knocks people out at heavyweight, I can't think of a better look for the league than something like that. What's going to happen if you had to predict? Because I'm terrified that Ngannou's on his way out. He's got one fight left, and I'm terrified that Dana White wants to let him know that nobody's bigger than the Shield.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a unique position, but it's not the best position that he could be in. The best position he could be in would be to be friendly and be cordial, at least from a business perspective with Dana and them. And I don't think they are. And that's not a good position to be in right now, because especially with the idea that Tyson Fury wants to fight him, the best thing that can happen for Francis Ngannou right now is that he goes out there, he wins, and then he's cool with Dana, where Dana's like, yeah, no problem, we'll let you fight Tyson Fury. I mean, that would be an ideal situation for him. And you're right. And let's call it like it is. What the world wants as a heavyweight champion is a big, scary black guy. Like, that's what we want. We want a big, scary black guy as a heavyweight champion. And it goes all the way back to, Muhammad Ali, him talking trash. Mike Tyson, he was a quiet killer. And Francis Ngannou could be that quiet killer. He doesn't have to say much. His look sells enough. And that's what we want. But the fact that he's coming out and he's complaining and all that stuff, it takes away from his mystique. He could just shut up and knock people out, and people would demand that we bring him back. Right. Because that's what we want, a scary black heavyweight champion. Especially one that's quiet too. One that's quiet too, because you don't say nothing, he just knock people out. That's all it says, speaks for itself.
By the way, what do you think? What do you think are the big stylistic points in the fight? And it's interesting because you have a really good technical kickboxer against a guy who can knock your head into the sixth row, and they've got the history of having trained together in years past when they were under the same banner under Fernand Lopez over there in France. How do you see this matchup going, Dean? Do you think this is gonna deliver a showstopper, or does maybe Gane kind of make it his fight and slow it down and kind of outpoint Francis? What do you expect?
I mean, I think this fight, as most fights, they come down to typically like that first minute or that first couple of minutes to kind of get an idea of what is going on inside the psychology of each guy. When I look at Francis has to be a little concerned, especially if he knows that Cyril was getting the better of him. Now, part of me understands that Francis doesn't like when people can get the better of him, as we saw, or have potential to hurt him. When we saw him fight Derek Lewis, he looked timid and afraid and hesitant. So that still has to be in the back of his mind. Now, if he recognizes that Cyril Gane can get the better of him, he might be surprised in this fight, especially. So he might go out with a little anxious, try to rush Cyril Gane and hurt him early because he doesn't want him to get the better of him. And if he can't do that, I can see him falling apart. I can see him falling apart if he doesn't get to Cyril Gane early. Cyril Gane, what we know about Cyril Gane is he's calm and he's cool. He's never affected by the fans. He fights such a mature, experienced fight, is that if he doesn't allow Francis Ngannou to get his hands on him and get that big punch off, I think he's going to finish Francis Ngannou, because I think Francis Ngannou will fall apart. Francis Ngannou has a good round to kind of change the course of this fight and make Cyril Gane panic a bit and hurt him. If he doesn't, Cyril Gane, I think, finishes Francis Ngannou.
If you were Ngannou's coach, Dean, how would you prepare him? How would you help him try to cut off the ring on Cyril Gane? Like, what would you do with him?
Yeah, he's got to cut off the ring, and he's got to hurt him at some level, and that's with, probably kicks, using some kicks, because it's going to be hard to get his hands on Cyril Gane, because Cyril Gane moves so well. Very Wonder Boy-esque. That karate stance where he's in and out and he judges distance so well. So Cyril Gane's going to have, or Francis Ngannou's going to have to kick his legs a bit. Set them kicks up with his hands, but he's going to have to kick his legs a little bit to slow him down, to make him human in terms of his movement. And then from there, try to rush him with power. But if he tries to rush him with power early on, he's going to get clipped. I can see him, like the way he rushed Biggie Boy, Rosenstruck. He rushed Rosenstruck, and it looked terrible. Like if you look at that in slow motion, it looked like World Star Hip Hop, World Star. It was like, what's going on here? But he rushed him. That was pure athleticism and power. He rushed him. I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Cyril Gane. If he rushes him, he's going to get clipped. So I think he's got to try to slow Cyril Gane's movement down, get him in a corner, and kind of be a little bit more patient. We saw him show patience against Stipe, and he's got to kind of have to fight a fight similar to that.
Now, just because, your coaching acumen is, speaks for itself. So you take a guy like Francis and you have that kind of a plan. How do you deal with the gas tank? Because he's like an F-18 at full throttle. You know what I mean? His gas tank is going to hit zero long before Cyril Gane's is, most likely. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Ngannou. It's just the way it is. So how do you execute that and also maintain the fact that his fuel level's running low fast?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is he's got to be a little bit more patient. The same way for Stipe, he's got to be more patient, and he's got to make contact a lot more than just like a big rush punch. He's got to just be patient, and then when he has his opportunities, rush. Then put the pressure on, and then be patient, then put the pressure on, But if he tries to put pressure on him too early and it doesn't work, he's in for a world of trouble. Like, it's a gamble. Like, he can try to put that pressure on early, and if he fails, he's going to lose for sure. It's a gamble that I wouldn't be willing to take.
And look, and from my novice perspective, also, Ngannou needs to not overreact to getting touched by Gane. Because I feel like when somebody touches Ngannou, he wants to come back with all that power. And he needs to understand that Gane's going to touch him up a little bit. But you know what? Some of that's going to just have to happen. He's just going to, as you say, just be patient.
Yeah, he's got to be patient. And this is the problem, is it the fight that he needs to win, he can't allow that style to get out of hand, because then he's going to get into a mental battle, a strategic, tactical battle with Cyril Gane, and he won't win that fight neither. That's the problem, is that if he tries to make it too tactical, he won't win that neither. He's got to find that balance of where he's patient, and then he puts the pressure on. Patient, pressure. But if he makes it too tactical, he won't win that battle, because then you're going to see him getting taken down. You're going to see him overthinking. You're going to see him start to make mental mistakes, then get frustrated. So he's got his work cut out for him. I think he's got a lot more work to do in order to win this fight than Cyril Gane does.
Dean, I think I know your answer to this based on your prior comments, but is there any chance that the UFC may have rushed Cyril Gane up to the title fight a little too soon? If you look at prior champs like Ngannou, Cormier, Stipe. I mean, they went through the meat grinder in the UFC heavyweight division. It seems like Gane kind of got fast-tracked pretty quickly, but any chance that experience plays a factor and maybe Gane isn't quite ready for this big moment just yet?
It feels like that. Like any other fighter with 9 fights, I would say, yeah. It feels like that, but the way he fights such a mature style. He's way more mature than what his record allows it to be. I'm not sure what Fernando Lopez is doing with them guys over there. I've watched him coach Francis before, and I mean, he's very tricky, he's very sneaky, and he's very good at what he does. Fernando Lopez is an underrated coach. But how he made Cyril Gane so mature, I'm not sure, because I've known fighters with, you know, a lot more fights than that panic in fights, you know what I'm saying, and look like a deer in headlights. He comes out there from the moment in the weigh-ins, he's calm. When he walks out, he's calm. He fights calm. He makes good decisions in fights. It's crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen a fighter so young fight so mature like that.
Well, but another part of that, Dean, is like, yeah, he's got 9 MMA fights, but he's got 13 pro Muay Thai fights. And I know it's not the exact same sport, but, you know, it's the skill set in Muay Thai is a big part of MMA, and stepping into that ring 13 times, doesn't that kind of add to the experience?
Yeah, it certainly does. Like anything you're in front of people adds to the experience. I don't care if he was, you know, shadow boxing in the park with people, like that adds to the experience. Like anything that makes you uncomfortable adds to your experience in dealing with being uncomfortable. But still, you know, we're talking about a guy who's potentially going to be the world champion, the heavyweight world champion. Now, you know, that may not sound like a lot now, but at one point in, you know, to the world, that was the biggest prestige that you could have, to be the heavyweight champion of the world. This is what this guy's going to do with 9 fights. Well, he potentially could do with 9 fights.
So something else I had to ask you before we let you run. I think everyone certainly on this panel was really shocked to see Juliana Pena get her hand raised against Amanda Nunes back at UFC 269. And it's one of those things where obviously super impressive by Juliana. That's a great moment for her. I truly believe if they fight 10 times, I think Amanda probably wins 9 of those. So what happens next, Dean, for Amanda? You think immediate rematch, and how can she approach it differently next time?
Yeah, she's going to get the immediate rematch. And I think when she approaches it the next time, she's just going to fight, you know. And I think, you know, she just didn't want to be there. She didn't want to fight that night. And you could see it. Like she tapped and the choke wasn't even in. She just didn't want to fight. For whatever reason, she just didn't want to fight. And I think when we see Amanda come back and fight her again, I think we're going to see the real Amanda. She's going to get her belt back, and then I think she retires. But I don't think she wants to go out the way she went out. I think she wanted to go out, but what happened was she fought and didn't want to fight because she was already checked out. And that's what happens when you fight and you're checked out. You get performances like that, and it's like anything else in life. When you're doing something and you don't want to be there, you're gonna get a crappy performance, and that's what we got out of Amanda Nunes. And I think that afterwards she looked at it and she said to herself, I owe myself more. I didn't work this hard and have this type of career to go out like that and give myself that. I don't even think it was for the people. I think it was for herself. I'm not going to go out and let myself go out looking like that. So I think she's going to fight her, and I think she's going to bust her up, and then she's going to retire, because I don't really think Amanda Nunes wants to fight.
Now, on the one hand, I think you know, if she retires on top after regaining her belt and busting up Pena, that's obviously, retiring on top is always a great way to finish your career, and people want that for everybody. But I'm also a little bit disappointed because, and maybe this is a pipe dream, but I would have loved to at some point. I know they're very friendly, they're friends with each other, they've trained together, but man, I would have loved to have seen Kayla Harrison against Amanda Nunes. So I guess that's probably never going to happen.
No, that's never going to happen, because. And here's why is it, you know, Amanda doesn't really want to fight. And we could have seen that. I mean, the signs were on the wall way before, you know, like she's not, and I've always said that she's not in the gym training all that much. Like she trains for fights, but other than that, she's not a student of the game. she's not a fighter right now. Like, she's competing and she's doing it because it's her job and she's very good at it, but she's not a fighter. Kayla Harrison, on the other hand, is an absolute fighter and an absolute competitor. Like, she lives for this. Like, she shows up, she's in the gym, training with whoever will give her some work, and that's what she does. She's a gym rat. And right, like, if the Amanda Nunes showed up to fight Kayla Harrison, the one that showed up to fight Juliana Pena, I mean, she would have got. I mean, if you think that was bad, I mean, it would have been bad, because Kayla Harrison is a different type of competitor. She's a two-time gold medalist, and that's just like being an Olympian, just a different level. She's on a different level of a different level. So she may not be there skill-wise, but the way she thinks and her mindset and her competitive attitude, man, she's on a different level. She would go to the UFC and just tear girls apart just based on that.
And it's like, maybe people don't realize this because, like, PFL, she's not under as big of a spotlight as she would be in the UFC. But like, I've interviewed Kayla before, and she's got so much personality. And like you said, 2-time gold medalist. Like, she's got much better judo credentials than Ronda Rousey did. Like, could Kayla Harris, like, if she managed her career the right way, and listen, if she decides to re-sign with PFL to get the bag, I can respect whatever she decides to do, or goes to Bellator to fight Cyborg. But honestly, I think Kayla Harrison in the UFC, she could have the potential to be as big as Ronda Rousey was. Do you agree?
Listen to me when I tell you this. Kayla Harrison is a better fighter than Ronda was. Timing is everything on this. Timing is everything. Ronda came out when girls were really in the infancy of getting good. That's when Ronda came out. Like, girls got good because Ronda, right? Because prior to Ronda, girls weren't training the way they're training now. Girls were just like showing up in the gym and just, seeing what they could do. But because Ronda came out and was beating them up and making all this money, the sport grew. Then girls got better. So Kayla is fighting the girls that are better. Like, Ronda couldn't come out and do that now. Now, if Kayla was fighting those girls, Ronda was a bronze medalist. Kayla's a 2-time gold medalist. If Kayla came out and at the same time Ronda did, man, Kayla would have beat these girls up worse than Ronda did. So, like, timing is everything on this. So, like, let's make no mistake about it. And I'm not saying this to diss Ronda. I'm just saying that Kayla's a better competitor and a better fighter than Ronda ever was.
Well, let me give you one from the chat, and then we'll let you run, because Alex M was asking a question for Dean. Who has the most pressure, Francis or Gane, when they fight this month?
Francis has all the pressure because of the beef that he has with the UFC. There's a lot of pressure on him. It's his last fight. He's still the champ, the heavyweight champ of the world. Cyril's a young pup right now. He's got 9 fights. He's the interim champ. He ain't got no pressure. He could lose this fight and come back and win again. Francis has to win this fight. If Francis doesn't win this fight, he's got no leverage to do anything. Like, think about it. Francis loses this fight, he's not the champ. Then he has to renegotiate a contract coming off a loss, talking to a boss that he has beef with. His fight with Tyson Fury would be in jeopardy because he's not the champ no more. So, like, right now, all the pressure's on Francis. Francis is not in a good spot. But however, if Francis wins, he's got some leverage. But, like, he's not in a good spot in terms of, like, being able to lose. Like, he can't lose. Like, if he loses, he's in a really bad position.
I agree. Make sure you guys follow Dean on Twitter. It's at Dean Thomas, DIN Thomas. And I'm guessing, Dean, you're going to be part of the commentary team for that fight, and probably for the Fight Night show the week prior as well, right?
Not the week prior. I'm not working that one. I am working on the Cyril Gane fight, and then a few of them after that. But and I think we're going to be filming an episode of Dana White Looking for a Fight early February too. So in Kansas City. So make sure if you're in Kansas City, you come to the arena and check us out.
Dude, good stuff. Dean, thank you so much, man. Enjoy your weekend coming up. I hope the New Year's treating you well so far.
All right, fellas. I will catch up with you guys.
All right. Thanks, Dean.
I love it. I love it. That is our guy. And listen, and when he talked about the pressure being on Francis. Frank, you think it's safe to say that Dana White, he's going to be rooting for Cyril Gane in this upcoming fight?
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, that's how he saves money. I mean, and I mean, that's how he puts Francis Ngannou right where he wants him. I love fights with consequences, and I love that Dean emphasized all that Ngannou has riding on this fight, because nothing interests me more when there's a fight like that than knowing what's riding on it for one or both of the competitors. And in this instance, Ngannou's got a potential boxing fight up in the air. He's got a new contract up in the air. He's got the title, in the UFC potentially up in the air. I mean, he's got so much riding on this. It'd be very interesting to see how he handles it, because I don't think fans of the sport give enough credit to what these athletes are dealing with. It's not just about going out there and dealing with your opponent on an X's and O's standpoint. It's also about compartmentalizing all of the various things that go into this fight and extend from the result of this fight. And for me, that's one of the most incredible things that some of these athletes do, is compartmentalizing it, not letting it become a distraction, and despite all of it, putting in your very best effort.
Yeah, big risk, big reward, right? I mean, this is what Francis Ngannou worked his whole career to get to this point. He won the title. Now people are talking about him. Now he has some big money fights ahead of him. He has a UFC contract ahead of him. Yes, it's a lot of pressure, but I mean, what else are they working for? I mean, I think of Kayla Harrison's situation where she was going into the PFL championship. She had $1 million on the line to win. She had, pretty much everybody, Bellator, UFC, everybody coming after her. If she wins the fight, if she lost the fight, they probably wouldn't have come after her, at least at this, with the same amount of money that they're throwing at her. So, these fighters put themselves in position to earn themselves these situations. And, he just has to come through. He just has one more big fight. It's probably the toughest fight, or one of the toughest fights of his career, with it. But there's so much to gain in it that I think you're going to see a motivated Francis Ngannou.
One of the things that Dean just said, guys, that kind of upset me was that Amanda Nunes is going to get an immediate rematch and then retire.
I know.
I'd rather just see her retire. I mean, why wreck the new blood momentum? Let her opponent have what she got, and let her move forward in a new league, that is typified by new challenges and new champions. I don't like the idea of her coming back just to win and then walk away. It feels GSP-ish.
No, you're right. But listen, Amanda's out for her own interest. She doesn't care about Juliana Peña's feelings. She doesn't care about Dana White's feelings. She's just trying to retire on top. Hey, before a little bit later, before we wrap it up, we're going to give our year-end awards. But Frank, I think we got 2 more toss-ups. Can you give those to us?
I can now. Yeah, I won't fluster like I did last time.
Fluster or filibuster, something like that.
Yeah, Khabib's Eagle FC promotion is making a lot of noise lately. I don't know if it's good noise, but what do you think about their upcoming matchup between Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez?
It's the weirdest.
I'm being serious about that matchup.
It's so bizarre, and borderline, like, it seems like an unsafe matchup to make. And it's crazy because, okay, both of these guys, Diego Sanchez and Kevin Lee, within the past year, they have both still been in the UFC fighting UFC fights, right? So if the UFC were to have 6 months ago announced, hey, we're going to match up Diego Sanchez with Kevin Lee, the MMA media and the public at large would say, have you lost your damn mind? Like, what are you? This fight makes no sense whatsoever. Kevin Lee might literally kill Diego Sanchez. It no sense whatsoever. And yet you see this happen sometimes, right? Where a smaller promotion will take 2 former UFC guys, and this match would have made no sense in the UFC because we got a couple big names. We're going to book it outside the UFC. This is promotional malpractice, right? And I get it. Like Eagle FC, they're trying to make a name for themselves, and they're trying to book, fights with recognizable guys. And they're doing it at 165 pounds, which, maybe not the worst thing for Kevin Lee because he's a pretty big guy. I know Diego Sanchez has fought even at 185, but at the Ultimate Fighter, he fought 185, but he's a natural 155er who's even fought at 145 pounds. This is not going to be competitive, James. I mean, Kevin Lee is just going to drop Diego Sanchez on his head repeatedly. And it's probably not going to be that fun of a fight to watch. I get it. Like, you take two former UFC guys, especially a guy like Diego Sanchez, who, has been around forever. He was like one of the original stars in the UFC, an Ultimate Fighter season 1 guy. Like, it's good to have these guys on the poster, but the actual fight to me should not be happening.
In pro wrestling terms, we call this a squash match. And what you mean by that is you put one guy that's pretty good against, just a nobody in wrestling terms, and just have him execute his best moves and just kind of show what he can do and just pin him 1, 2, 3 real easy. This seems like kind of a squash match to me, to where they're showcasing Kevin Lee. Maybe they build Eagle FC kind of around him, kind of sort of, maybe him and maybe 3 other fighters. At this point, you get whoever you can get, and for Khabib to get Kevin Lee, I mean, that's a pretty good get. If Bellator got Kevin Lee, people will be impressed. If PFL got Kevin Lee, they would be very impressed. So for Khabib to do that, right away, I think is pretty impressive. Now, Diego Sanchez, I mean, not very impressive, but at least it's a name. So I'm not that mad about it considering the situation. I mean, it's Eagle FC. But they at least got Kevin Lee, so we at least get to see Kevin Lee fight and see where he is at this point. And then as time goes on, you could put a little more money into the system and get someone else to challenge Kevin Lee with a bigger name. But for a first matchup, it's okay, but I'm not that mad about
it. I don't understand what the point of Khabib's promotion is. Can someone explain that to me? No, I'm being serious, because like I kind of pictured it as like, okay, he's providing a professional opportunity managed by someone who understands what it takes to get where these guys want to go and girls want to go. Yeah. And he's providing it for people from his part of the world. That was kind of like how I perceived what he was doing. And then he went Scott Coker on me with Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez. So, like, I don't get what he's doing, because no one's paying to watch Kevin Lee and Diego Sanchez. So he thinks it's something that's interesting, and it's not, and it degrades from what I think he's actually trying to accomplish. He doesn't actually have any delusions that he's going to be the next UFC. I feel like he feels like he's a Dagestani proving ground for those of whom may be ready to take the next step into the really big leagues. That's what I thought this Eagle FC was all about. So I don't understand what this is about. I don't give a shit about this fight. I don't know who would, and I don't understand why they're putting it on. And anybody that puts Diego Sanchez in a cage should be subject to felony prosecution. Yeah. The guy is incapable of defending himself. He's out of his mind. He needs help. He needs protection from himself. The last thing he needs is a sanctioned fight. I don't care where in the world it's taking place. And I think Kevin Lee's signing up anywhere where there's no USADA. And I said that, and I know maybe that was off-putting, and I shouldn't have said that.
Well, he's positive before. I mean, that's one of the reasons. That's why he's out of the UFC.
That's what I'm saying. I just think he's like, this is great. I can beat the shit out of Diego Sanchez, and I'm going to be jacked. I think that's all Kevin Lee's thinking.
I like the fact that he wants to get paid only in Bitcoin, because it's probably good for my investment. The more athletes who do that, but
they don't want to pay taxes either.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's just I don't understand this. Why isn't Khabib still fighting?
Well, but you know what's that way he should be. But you know what's like you talked about, like, why isn't Khabib doing it a different way? Now, he may have gotten into this thinking, I'm going to do this my way, but then you sit down with the money people, right? You sit down with, the people that are kind of guiding you through because I'm sure he has like mentors that are helping him kind of go through the promotional process. And they probably sat him down and said, Khabib, if you want to put on cards where it's just like guys that have also wrestled bears, in Dagestan, no one's ever heard of, these might be some of the best fighters in the world, like guys that you coach and stuff. But if you want to actually get people to watch your shows, you've got to put names on the poster that people know. And so unfortunately, it's just the reality. And you see this, in boxing, you see it in MMA, you see it in pro wrestling, although pro wrestling at least is scripted, so you're probably not going to kill each other. But, the only way to actually make money in this business is, and maybe on the undercard, we see some amazing young Dagestani fighters that hopefully become big stars in the future. But to sell these fights, you've got to have, the Diego Sanchez's of the world, unfortunately, like you said, that's probably the wrong guy to do it because Diego, he's past his expiration date by a couple of years at this point.
How do you watch it? How do you watch Eagle FC?
I'm not even sure. Hold on. Let me see if is it on I think it's on UFC Fight Pass. I think it's going to be on the Fight Pass actually. So I think that's hold on. Let me Google it. This is great.
Why you look that up, Alex? To Frank's point, why not have the best unsigned guy from Khabib's camp fight Kevin Lee? Right. Really nothing to lose. His best 155 or 165 or whatever. If they lose to Kevin Lee, a former UFC title challenger. If they win, hey, maybe they're better. They're ready for a bigger promotion. They get a nice contract from Bellator or the UFC. It could be a good, if Khabib does it right, to Frank's point, it could be a good minor leagues, so to speak, to
right.
kind of groom his guys, people coming from his country and his camp to the major leagues. But yeah, I don't see that so far. But hey, maybe that's the plans in the future.
Thanks for enunciating my point better, because you're right. And Diego Sanchez could do the same. He could fight some other Dagestani on his way up. Yeah, the matchup between the two of them just smells like Scott Coker and a bad dream.
Yeah, no, good point.
It is UFC Fight Pass, by the way.
Okay. Well, that's even more to what the point James just made. That's even more reason to feature some of these Dagestani fighters. Or whatever, just Russia in general, whatever area of the world he's trying to focus on, you've got the Fight Pass relationship, so you're already getting paid, so the hell with it. And, I don't know what he's got to pay Kevin Lee to fight, but, it's got to wash out any residual value on people actually tuning in to watch it, right? I mean, Kevin Lee knows what his worth is to Eagle FC.
Absolutely. It's about 3 Bitcoin.
I wouldn't want to negotiate a contract with Khabib, though. I can tell you that.
By the way, I take no responsibility for this. By the way, I would never suggest Litecoin, sir. He says Alex Donno told me to invest in Litecoin. I've never lost this much money. Litecoin. I know, Frank. This is like Chinese to you. You're not into the crypto game. I know James is. Litecoin has kind of become like a joke. It's a real coin. It's been profitable at some points, but it's kind of pointless. I would never suggest somebody buy Litecoin.
Crypto's way down this week. I don't even want to talk about it right now.
It is way down. It is absolutely down. All right, we got one more toss up.
Rates are creeping up. Do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, my New Year's resolution is to get Frank Zaffere with Dean Thomas in training. We're going to make this happen this year. Frank, we've been trying to make this happen for 3 years. 2022 is going to be our year, man. A lot of people's New Year's resolutions are to get themselves into the gym. My New Year's resolution is to get Frank Zaffere into the octagon at a training gym with Dean Thomas and some pro fighters. We're going to make it happen this year.
Yeah, let's line up a fight, too. I mean, let's make it a whole show.
You want to fight for Eagle FC? You probably be better than Diego Sanchez at this point.
In fact, yes, that's the league I want to fight in. I want my pro debut to be an Eagle FC against a Dagestani.
Oh my God, you're gonna get killed.
I'm fighting in Moscow, and after the fight, I'm gonna do the Rocky IV speech. If I can change, you can change. We can all change.
Man,
as the fight was going on, initially you was booing me. What I noticed as the fight went on, you started cheering for me.
Man,
I can do the whole thing.
I have a much more simple resolution, but I'm kind of debating whether or not. A problem I have is I eat late at night, between 8 and midnight, and sometimes after dinner. I have dinner early around 5 or 6, and then I find myself going back to the fridge at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. I think I've gained a few pounds doing that though, man. I have 2 dinners, so I'm gonna try to have just one dinner, a night, at least to start with, and see if that helps me drop a few pounds.
No, it's a good one, man. I've been on a savage diet for a few months, and one of the things that I stopped doing, like you're saying, late night snacks, it was killing me. Because another problem is I'm on the Ambien, and it'll turn you into a zombie, and sometimes you don't even remember doing the late night snacks. So you got to be so disciplined. And as far as I know, I've cut them out. At least I haven't had any late night snacks that I remember in a long time. What about you, Frank? Any resolutions?
Yeah, my New Year's resolution is to get this Alex mother bleeping Donno, to get Kevin Iole and Dean Thomas to throw out some listen to this show tweets, because they'll listen to Alex. They won't listen to me, but they'll listen to Alex.
They'd probably listen to you more than me.
If we can get Iole and Thomas to throw out just a handful of them, I mean, this is going to be a different show in 2022, guys.
I like it. We need influencers is what we need. That's what we need in 2022.
And who's more likable than Dean Thomas?
Nobody. He's the most likable guy. And by the way, he is, because he's been in tremendous shape probably his entire life. It goes to show you how important genetics are. When I used to do fight commentary with Dean, and Frank, you did this once with me at Fight Time Promotions. They made us show up like really early at like noon to do like a run through of like the schedule, and then you'd have nothing to do till like 8. Like you'd be done with the run through at like 1 p.m. You have nothing to do until 8 p.m. So we had all this downtime. I used to go on candy runs for Dean, because Dean, like I was Dean's gopher. Like I did commentary with him, and I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna run out and grab some lunch. Do you want anything? He didn't eat regular food. Like he just told me, if you're gonna go, I'm like, hey, do you want some tacos or something? No, go get me a bag of Sour Patch Kids. And his lunch was like a bag of Sour Patch Kids. Crazy. And he's in tremendous shape. That's a diet of champions right there. Candy.
Man, that's an interesting story with Dean. I would have never guessed that, with Dean, but hey, whatever works, it's working for him.
I go on candy runs with the guy. All right, I want to go through, before we wrap up this episode, some year-end awards, because this is our first show since shortly before Christmas. I've got clear answers for most of these guys. Let's start with Fight of the Year 2021 in the UFC. There's been some good fights, but to me, it's the fight that was so hyped and delivered and actually exceeded my expectations. Obvious answer, but I thought Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. That was my fight of the year, because you knew that fight was going to be all action, big time strikes landed, heavy pace, heavy pressure. And I thought the fight even exceeded my expectations. So I'm going with that. Gaethje over Michael Chandler for fight of the year. What about you, James?
I agree. Gaethje, Michael Chandler, fight of the year for me. And as you mentioned, a big reason is because people had extremely high expectations of it, and they not only met that, but they exceeded that. And I also like the fact that they moved it up to start the pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. And the arena was packed for the first pay-per-view fight. When there were 5 fights on the card, the whole arena was packed because they knew Gaethje and Chandler were fighting in the first fight. It got moved up, I think, 3 or 4 days before the fight, and it completely delivered. And I'll give you an underrated fight of the year that probably no one's really thinking about as much. I really like that Max Holloway Yair Rodriguez fight.
It's a good call.
I thought in terms of skill, competitiveness, just toughness. I thought that was a tremendous fight as well. But yeah, Gaethje Chandler takes it for me this year.
Crazy, man. It's only happened a few times. They made The Godfather. The Godfather Part 2 was just as good, if not better. They made Matrix, and Matrix, the sequel, man, was that good. And Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman, the first one was epic, and the second one was even better. Okay. That's my fight of the year. Okay. Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman. And the reason, just to put a little enunciation on it, you don't see 2 better combatants in a weight class. I mean, it's very rare where you have that kind of talent, that kind of acumen right at the top, like you do right there.
Okay, you know what? I still go Gaethje Chandler, but that's a good shout. Okay, all right, guys, let's do fighter of the year. This is too obvious, guys. I mean, how many times have you ever seen someone disappear from a sport for 6 years and then actually return and land some good punches against a former UFC champion in their return? I mean, you talk about a long road back. Nick Diaz, obvious. I mean, I don't know how you guys I probably stole yours, James. I stole yours, Frank. Nick Diaz, fighter of the year, 2021. I mean, we haven't even seen the guy fight since 2015.
Who's your 2021 fighter of the year, Alex? Come on, man.
Kamaru Usman. He's my. If only Nick had fought maybe twice in 2021, he would have been my fighter of the year. No, but it's Kamaru Usman. I mean, perfect year against top competition. He knocked out Gilbert Burns in February. He didn't just KO, he KTFO'd Jorge Masvidal in April. And he took a decision. I know, Frank, that you thought Colby won. I did think Usman won. It was obviously a very close fight, but he took a decision against Colby Covington in their rematch. And Colby Covington, if Kamaru Usman didn't exist, Colby Covington would be the UFC welterweight champion. He's definitely the second best welterweight in the world. There's no question about it. Beating that guy twice. I know that they weren't both twice in the same year, but beating that guy twice and beating him for a second time is impressive. Kamaru Usman is my fighter of the year.
Yeah, not much to add to that. You covered everything. Kamaru Usman, I think, is undisputed in that. I'll give a second place just to add some analysis to Charles Oliveira. I believe that was a Tony Ferguson fight in this calendar year. Tony Ferguson Oliveira fight, but even if it wasn't,
but I can double check that. Hold on.
Yeah, even if it wasn't, he won the belt against Michael Chandler in the spring and defended it against Dustin Poirier when a lot of people kind of thought that, Dustin was the uncrowned champ. Oliveira is only getting better. Looking forward to what he has in store for 2022.
That fight was December of last year.
Okay, almost close enough.
Almost
close enough.
Yeah, so I'll count it. So I'll give him a close second. But yeah, what Kamaru Usman did not only is great for this year, but I think it was one of the all-time single-year performances from a fighter in UFC history. What Kamaru Usman did in 2021.
James, you stole my thunder, bro. I got Charles Oliveira all day. I mean, but first of all, he's won 1 million fights in a row, and everybody seems to forget that. And then he won the belt. Nobody thought he could pull that off, knocking out Michael Chandler. And then nobody thought he was going to beat Dustin Poirier, and he does. Now, I'm not saying his run is going to continue all through 2022. But the fact is, in 2021, he was the feel-good surprise story of the year, in my opinion. We all know how good Kamaru Usman is, right? I mean, he's phenomenal. We all know who he is. Charles Oliveira made us know who he is this year. And I could not be more impressed with him. And he is my fighter of the year.
All right, so let's move on to, how about knockout of the year? I reviewed today the film of some 2021 knockouts, and at first I was thinking of going with Usman's KTFO against Masvidal from back in April, but I was then reminded of a guy who I think is soon going to be holding the UFC light heavyweight strap. Yuri Prochazka had a spinning back elbow knockout against Dominic Reyes this year. I always like it. I mean, KTFOs are great, overhand rights and all that. But when you're talking about an unconventional move like a wheel kick or a spinning back fist or a spinning back elbow, the creativity and the devastation and the violence, I give it to Yuri Prochazka.
This is a tough one because there were a lot of great ones. In Usman, I think, is the easy pick just because the sheer violence of it. But man, Rose Namajunas kick of Yang Wheat, I cannot never pronounce it correctly, but excuse me. But
Zhang or whatever.
Yes, yeah. Her head kick to win a belt. The stakes. I think Yang Wei only had one loss at that point and was undefeated in the UFC. She was running through everybody at that point. It was kind of a surprise upset, and just the head kick. I give that a slight edge. Usman, I think, was expected to win that fight. Rose Namajunas was not expected to win the belt. So I go Namajunas head kick for KO of the year.
I don't want to sound like I'm tapping out on this or anything, but for me, I have a little bit of that fan in me where every time I see a KO, it's the best KO I've ever seen. So it's hard for me to remember the one that I think is really the greatest. But that shot of Usman knocking out Masvidal was epic, not only because it was clean, final, there didn't need to be a follow-up, he smashed him, but also because he did it to the guy who does that to everybody else. So that was why it stuck in my mind so well. So I would have to vote for Usman over Masvidal.
Yeah, Masvidal was never finished prior to that fight, so that's impressive to be the first person to finish Masvidal in that violent fashion. Was pretty impressive. And Masvidal even said, "Hey, he appreciates that knockout. He, wish it didn't happen to him, but from a violent person like that, he says he appreciates that violence of a knockout."
So last category, and I don't know. I feel like my answer on this may not be great because for submission of the year, but I'm kind of leaning to the stakes. I think had something to do with it. Now the actual tap was a little bit cheap because it wasn't completely locked in at the time when the tap came. But I think that the opponent knew that it was inevitable, but he wasn't really in that fight mentally. But the story of Glover Teixeira, and it was very slick the way he locked in that rear naked choke. Now Blachowicz maybe eventually would have tapped, but like he tapped before it was even under the chin. But just the magnitude of that fight, and I didn't think, honestly, I bet money and lost money on Jan Blachowicz. I didn't think 42-year-old Glover Teixeira was going to get it done. It was very slick the way that he set it up, and I've watched him over the years. Rear naked choke is one of Glover Teixeira's best weapons. I'm going to go with that because also some of the other like big submissions this year, I view them as mercy kills, right? Because a lot of people thought that the best submission of the year was Vicente Luque against Tyron Woodley, but it's like he had beaten him to a pulp at that point. So it was basically he locked in a Darce choke, but it was like he could have submitted him any way he wanted to at that. Like he could have, he could have taken a rear naked choke and a guillotine. It was like, oh, this guy's unconscious practically. Let me lock in a Darce choke. So it was nice, but I view mercy kills differently than submissions that you're actually slick and you set up. So I'm going to go with Glover Teixeira.
So I have co-submissions of the year because one wasn't. I'll explain that one later. Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, rear naked choke wasn't one of those things where he fell asleep or anything like that. But just because of the stakes and everything at the end of the year. But my true submission of the year that isn't really a submission of the year is Juliana Pena. Over Amanda Nunes. Didn't really get to lock it in, but the stakes, the upset, it was the biggest, I think it was the biggest upset in UFC history, or one of the biggest upsets in UFC history in terms of odds are concerned. Definitely the biggest upset of the year. So for Amanda Nunes to tap out, and to tap out that way, I think was pretty shocking overall. So all those things kind of factored in to make a submission of the year, even though it wasn't really a textbook submission.
I don't know how you talk about Vicente Luque and you don't bring up his submission over Michael Chiesa. I mean, for me, that fight was awesome just because that's what Chiesa does. That fight was back and forth. It was all over the place. It was slick, and it was awesome. So, again, kind of like KOs. The last one I saw is the best one I saw, but that one stuck out to me just because that fight was so back and forth. And in the same vein as Masvidal losing the way he always wins, I thought Chiesa getting choked out the way he always wins was really poignant. Vicente Luque is a fucking badass, dude. I mean, he really is a bad motherfucker. I really hope for good things for him in 2022. Pardon my French, but like he is
I've said worse things already.
He's the kind of guy that fans should get behind. You know? He's a lunch pail mother bleeper. Yeah. I'd like to see this guy go on a run, but unfortunately, there's this guy named Kamaru Usman in the division.
Pretty good. Yeah. Well, listen, I love it. And before we send our final shout outs, I want to remind you guys, every episode of 5 Rounds is served by the Quarter Deck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. I haven't been to the Quarter Deck in like a fortnight. I cannot wait to get back out there and enjoy some delicious seafood. And by the way, even if you're on a savage diet like me, they've got something for you. I had the Asian chicken salad the last time I was there, went a little light on the dressing, and man, it was healthy. It tasted great. I love to build my own poke bowl at the Quarter Deck. That is super healthy, whether you're on a diet or not. And if you're definitely not on a diet, oh my God, the All-American Burger, that is my go-to, man. I love to get tater tots on the side. You can choose your side at the Quarter Deck. Tater tots, curly fries, sweet potato fries, regular fries, macaroni and cheese. There are so many great options at the Quarter Deck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. The sandwiches are awesome. The fresh mahi-mahi is so good. The key lime cheesecake is the perfect way to finish every meal. They have 2-for-1 happy hour all day, every day. This is a great place to wet your whistle. And the beer is always ice cold, my friends. And when you go out there on weekends, watch some NFL football, they got your hookup with the 5 for $15 ice cold buckets of imported beer. Make the Quarter Deck your spot for every big game and every big fight. They got the UFC pay-per-views for zero cover charge. Oh, and by the way, guys, for those of you who, you spend your money every month to watch it at home, they're raising the prices starting with the Ngannou Gane fight. And believe me, once they raise those prices, they never go down. The UFC pay-per-view prices are going up to $75 a pop. I'm old enough to remember when it was $45 for a UFC pay-per-view. I remember 45, inflation and schmation. $75 it's going to cost you for a UFC pay-per-view. You know how much it'll cost you at the quarter deck? 0.0 in the cover charge. There's no cover charge at the quarter deck. So don't pay the $74.99. They're robbing you blind. Go out and support the UFC at the Quarter Deck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. You make some new friends when you're out there as well. So make sure UFC 270 coming up. Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, heavyweight title. You watch it at the Quarter Deck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. Check out their menu online or find the location nearest to you by visiting their website, quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarter Deck, come for the food, stay for the fun. James, you got anything to promote this week? People can see your Twitter handle there. Where do you want people to come find you?
Yeah, just follow me at James Walker NFL on Twitter. I've been pretty low key, on vacation for the last couple of weeks, so I'll be back at it starting Monday. But yeah, I'm not happy about raising prices for the UFC, man. That's not good. Not good. You might see me at a few quarter decks. They keep doing this. Eating some lovely food and enjoying some free pay-per-views.
No question about that. Frank, we've had a show Twitter account for only a couple of weeks. Hold on. I just want to plug the show Twitter, 5_MMA. Make sure you follow us at 5_MMA. That is our show Twitter account. We've had an account for a couple of weeks. You launched your new Twitter account back in like July or August, and we already have more followers than you on the show account. What are we at on Real Frank _Z?
We're at 45. Thanks for asking. I'm gonna get busy after the show and help Notre Dame finish their 2022 recruiting class, get to work on 2023, and get excited for this fight, man. What is it, the 21st?
22nd, I think. Yeah,
and Alex, I gotta throw a little shade at you. You said you're old enough to remember when it was only $45 for a UFC event.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty old. I don't remember the last time you ever paid that. So
fair.
Yeah. Cheapest man alive, right there. Alex
totally.
Cheapest man alive.
Totally. Yeah. I'm always I'm a great negotiator as a part of that, man. I mean, when I helped my wife about a year ago, 10 months ago, get a new car, she couldn't believe it, man. I walked out of that place like 2 times, and within 3 hours we got a deal. She paid less than she thought she could pay for that car. So it's good. It's good to have frugality. Frugality runs in my family. So yeah, huge shout out. And by the way,
you walked out of that dealership, they were paying you.
Yeah, they pay me a monthly payment just to take the car out of their lot. So huge shout out, Alex M. I see Tony 2 times in the chat as well. He says they just raised it $5 a few months ago. Yeah, they just within the last year they raised it from $65.99 or $64.99 to $69.99. Yeah, now they're raising it to $75. They can blame inflation, I guess, is what they're going to blame here. Whatever it is, man. So thanks Tony. Thanks, Alex. I also saw in the chat earlier, Chris, the Finns tailgate. Saw him in the chat as well. Saw a couple of Russian spammers in there. They were probably in here for the Eagle FC talk. Oh, he talk about the Eagle. It's not very good. From Dagestan, we talk about the Eagle FC. Not very nice, the thing you say, my friend. Not very good. Estefin, thank you so much for stopping in as well. We will talk to you guys again next Thursday. Same time, same place. 5 Reasons Sports Network YouTube. Another episode of 5 Rounds coming your way next Thursday night, 6 p.m. See ya.